Bonjour à tous, bonjour à toi qui est là. Aujourd'hui, un ASMR un petit peu spécial. Et puis aussi parce que j'avais plus trop d'idées. Aujourd'hui je vais vous lire un livre. Vous l'avez sans doute déjà vu. C'est un livre d'Agatha Christie. Le meurtre de l'Orient Express. Enfin, le crime de l'Orient Express. La particularité ce soir, c'est tout d'abord que j'ai un nouveau micro. J'ai acheté un Yeti pour vos oreilles. Et la deuxième particularité de ce livre, c'est que c'est la version originale en anglais. Donc nous allons lire le premier chapitre. Et peut-être, si nous avons le temps, le deuxième. Chapter 1. An important passenger on the tourist express. It was 5 o'clock on a winter morning in Syria. Alongside the platform at Aleppo stood the train grandly designed in a railway guide at the tourist express. It consisted of a kitchen and dining car, a sleeping car and 2 local coaches. By the step leading up into the sleeping car stood a young French lieutenant, resplendent in uniform, conversing with a small lean man, muffled up to the ears, of whom nothing was visible but a pink-tipped nose and the 2 points of an upward-curved moustache. It was freezingly cold, and this job of seeing off a distinguished stranger was not one to be envied. But Lieutenant Busk performed his part manfully. Graceful phrases fell from his lips in polished French. Not that he knew what it was all about. There had been rumors, of course, as there always were in such cases. The general, his general's temper had grown worse and worse. And then there had come this Belgian stranger, all the way from England, it seemed. There had been a week of curious tensity. And then certain things had happened. A very distinguished officer had committed suicide, another had resigned. Anxious faces had suddenly lost their anxiety. Certain military precautions were relaxed, and the general, Lieutenant Busk's own particular general, had suddenly looked 10 years younger. The Busk had overheard part of a conversation between him and the stranger. "You have saved us, mon cher," said the general emotionally, his great white moustache trembling as he spoke. "You've saved the honor of the French army. You've averted much bloodshed. How can I thank you for acceding to my request? To have come so far," to which the stranger, by name Mr. Hercule Poirot, had made a fitting reply, including the phrase, "But indeed do I not remember that once you saved my life." And then the general had made another fitting reply to that, disclaiming any merit for that past service, and with more mention of France, of Belgium, of glory, of honor, and of such kindred things. They had embraced each other heartily, and the conversation had ended. As to what it had all been about, Lieutenant Busk was still in the dark, but observation. Conversation on the platform before the departure of a train are apt to be somewhat repetitive in character. That is so, agreed Mr. Poirot. And you intend to remain there a few days, I think. Mary, Istanbul, it is a city I've never visited. It would be a pity to pass through, comme ça. He snapped his finger descriptively. Nothing presses. I shall remain there as a tourist for a few days. La Sainte-Sophie is very fine, said Lieutenant de Basque, who had never seen it. A cold wind came whistling down the platform. Both men shivered. Lieutenant de Basque managed to cast a surreptitious glance at his watch. 5 minutes to 5. Only 5 minutes more. Fancying that the other man had noticed this surreptitious glance, he hastened once more into speech. There are few people traveling this time of year, he said, glancing up at the windows of the sleeping car above them. That is so, agreed Mr. Poirot. Let us hope you will not be snowed up in the terrace. That happened. It has occurred, yes. Not this year as yet. Let us hope then, said Mr. Poirot. The weather report from Europe. They're bad. Very bad. In the Balkans there is much snow. In Germany too, I've heard. Eh bien, said Lieutenant de Basque, hastily as another pause seemed to be about to occur. Tomorrow evening at 7:40 you will be in Constantinople. Yes, said Mr. Poirot, and went on desperately. La Sainte-Sophie, I've heard it is very fine. Magnificent, I believe. Above the head, the blind of one of the sleeping car compartments was pushed aside, and a young woman looked out. Mary Debenham had had little sleep since she left Baghdad on the preceding Thursday. Neither in the train to Kirkuk, nor in the rest house at Mosul, nor last night on the train had she slept properly. Now, weary of lying wakeful in the hot stuffiness of her overheated compartment, she got up and peered out. This must be Aleppo. Nothing to see, of course. Just a long, poor-lighted platform with loud, furious altercation in Arabic going on somewhere. 2 men below her window were talking French. One was a French officer. The other was a little man with enormous mustaches. She smiled faintly. She had never seen anyone quite so heavily muffled up. It must be very cold outside. That was why they hated the train so terribly. She tried to force the window down lower, but it wouldn't go. The wagon-ly conductor had come up to the 2 men. The train was about to depart, he said. Monsieur had better mount. The little man removed his hat. What an egg-shaped head he had. In spite of her preoccupation, Mary Debenham smiled. A ridiculous-looking little man, the sort of little man one could never take seriously. Lieutenant Basque was saying his parting speech. He had thought it out beforehand, and had kept it till the last minute. It was a very beautiful, polished speech. Not to be outdone, Mr. Poirot replied in kind. En voiture, monsieur, said the wagon-ly conductor. With an air of infinite reluctance, Mr. Poirot climbed aboard the train. The conductor climbed after him. Mr. Poirot waved his hand. Lieutenant de Basque came to the salute. The train, with a terrific jerk, moved slowly outstretched hand was suggested. Hercule Poirot placed it in a folded note. Merci, monsieur. The conductor became brisk and businesslike. Have the ticket of monsieur. I will also take their passport, please. Monsieur breaks his journey in Istanbul, I understand. Mr. Poirot assented. There are not many people traveling, I imagine, he said. No, monsieur. I have only 2 other passengers, both English. A colonel from India and a young English lady from Baghdad. Monsieur requires anything? Monsieur demanded a small bottle of Perrier. 5 o'clock in the morning is an awkward time to board the train. There was still 2 hours before dawn. Conscious of an inadequate night's sleep and of a delicate mission successfully accomplished, Mr. Poirot curled up in a corner and fell asleep. When he awoke, it was 9:30, and he sallied forth to the restaurant car in search of hot coffee. There was only one occupant at the moment, obviously the young English lady referred to by the conductor. She was tall, slim, and dark, perhaps 28 years of age. There was a kind of cool efficiency in the way she was eating her breakfast and in the way she called to the attendant to bring her more coffee, which bespoke a knowledge of the word and travelling. She wore a dark-colored travelling dress of some thin material, eminently suitable for the heated atmosphere of the train. Mr. Hercule Poirot, having nothing better to do, amused himself by studying her without appearing to do so. She was, he judged, the kind of young woman who could take care of herself with perfect ease wherever she went. She had poise and efficiency. He rather liked the severe regularity of her feature than the delicate pallor of her skin. He liked the burnished back head with its neat wave of hair, and her eyes, cool, impersonal and grey. But she was, he decided, just a little too efficient to be what he called jolie femme. Alors, c'était un extrait du premier chapitre. N'hésitez pas à me dire si ça vous a plu. Si ça vous a plu, on le refera sûrement. Si jamais vous avez quelques petites suggestions, si vous voulez que je parle plus lentement, plus rapidement, j'ai peut-être buté sur certains mots. C'est assez compliqué de lire puisque j'ai très peu de lumière. J'espère en tout cas que la vidéo vous aura plu, que vous dormez actuellement ou que vous allez bientôt dormir. Je vous souhaite une